and welcome to the Weather Studio Live. It's Tuesday the 4th of February. It's 1 p.m. and I'm Clare Nazir.
And I'm Alex Deakin. Thank you for joining us. Do get involved. We do want your questions. Send them in. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitter and on Facebook as well.
So what's coming up today, Alex?
Well, there's big changes taking place with our weather over the next few days. And then perhaps again at the weekend, it could get very, very lively indeed. So we're going to be talking about potentially stormy weather as we go into the weekend. We'll be looking at why and the uncertainties behind that, as well as the calmer weather that's arriving over the next couple of days. We've also got a first, haven't we? Potentially a taste test later on.
Possibly a taste test. He's very excited about this.
I'm very excited about the taste test.
More about that in a moment. And we've got a slightly new format for the Weather Studio Live.
Yes. So send me questions. Send us in your thinking as well behind this format. We've kind of segmented things down a little bit to break it up, make it a little bit clear about what we're talking about. We're going to try and start every show with weather in pictures.
Well, you did ask us, didn't you? You said, can we please have some photos at the beginning of the show from viewers? And so this is exactly what we've done.
Gorgeous images. These are from Sheena Parry-Davies, a regular contributor. Some beautiful pinky skies there over Pontypridd. These were taken yesterday on Monday. A couple of other images there from Sheena. And if you do want to send us your photos, then the easiest way to do it is through Twitter. Use the hashtag #LoveUKWeather and put a tick next to it. Then we know that you're happy for us to use them. These ones taken from Liam Ball, 92. These are over Shropshire again. Beautiful fiery skies. These were the last day of January, so these were taken on Friday.
So I think that was just a window of fine weather between the weather systems which came in and pushed their way southwards. And I remember just travelling across the country on Friday and thinking, what a change in weather from one part to another, from the south to the north. And yeah, there were some beautiful skies.
And this was on Saturday. Chris Alpacas, again, another regular contributor. Beautiful skies there.
That's lovely. So that's probably a little bit of high cloud just stretching across that.
Gorgeous elements there. And look at this. Look at this.
You tease us,
This is Yorkshire. This is Yorkshire, admittedly from last year.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd show you that for all the snow-thirsty people who are desperate for a bit of snow. We have been deprived this year so much, but there's some glorious images from a year ago across France.
I did really want you to use one of my photographs, which you did, and that's the Brecon Beacons over the last few days.
Oh.
The snow line was quite high, but you could see a real definition between where the snow line was on that day and the milder conditions further down towards ground level. It was lovely, actually. It was very nice.
I'm sure everyone watching this already follows you on Twitter.
Well, I didn't.
They've already seen that image. They've already seen it.
So this is... Here we go. Weather.
Signposting. It's all about signposting. So now we're going to talk about the weather over the next few days because there is quite a big change taking place. Let's start with what happened yesterday because this was quite an interesting little feature, a waving weather front. You can see it here on the satellite image. And as we went through yesterday, it brought a bit more rain than perhaps we were anticipating across southern England. But look at that little bulge that develops there across northern parts of Europe. That's interesting because that little rippling, waving weather front developed into quite a vicious area of low pressure in here. And that is now bringing some heavy snowfall over the Alps, but perhaps also more importantly, some very strong winds. Look at the intensity of that low through the rest of today. Look at those isobars really pinching together here across the Alps. So some pretty stormy conditions, you could say. There'll be blizzards with those very strong winds. A Mistral wind picking up there down across France with those, and then as the low starts to ebb away, we'll see something of a Bora wind where those winds come down over the Alps and down through the Adriatic.
I mean, they do need the snow in the Alps. We do snow reports every day for Channel 5, and it's been very quiet, hasn't it, over the last 6 weeks or so?
Snow early December, didn't they? So the season got off to a really good start, but yeah, since mid-December they've been struggling a little bit for extra snow. So this is good news if you're going half-term skiing in a couple of weeks.
Not today.
It's good news that there will be some fresh snow, but those winds are really going to be quite strong. There's an explainer video on our sister channel, Learn About Weather. It goes winds of the world, I think, so you can learn there about a Mistral wind or a Bora wind. And a waving weather front. There's an explainer on that channel as well about exactly what a waving weather front is. But anyway, let's get back to the UK because... Yes, look at the number of isobars. There is quite a cold wind blowing out there today, but it has eased off. Very lively conditions over northern Scotland last night, but now it's all about high pressure building in, and this high is going to really switch things up over the next couple of days. It just ebbs its way in across the country. The isobars open out, and this high pressure is going to bring dry weather for most of us, really for the rest of this working week. And also, particularly at night, it is going to bring a chill. So temperatures overnight These are towns and cities values may just about stay above freezing, but certainly in the countryside there'll be pockets of frost. And that's not all. Let's put the cloud on, because in here there's just a finger of fog really across parts of particularly the Midlands, East Wales, extending up into northwest England. Just a little legacy of some moisture air in here, and that's where we're a bit concerned that the fog could really thicken up overnight tonight. So bear that in mind if you're on the roads first thing on Wednesday morning. Or if you're going to an airport, because it could impact that. That area of fog expands a little bit and does work its way a bit eastwards, and it could linger for much of tomorrow. But apart from that bit of fog, notice we don't get much across Scotland because there's a bit more of a breeze blowing here, and there will be some drizzle perhaps at times in northern Scotland. But for most places, tomorrow and indeed Thursday, dry because of that area of high pressure, fine conditions. Again, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, we'll start to see that fog thickening up. It'll be quite patchy in nature, but it could be quite dense. And by the time we get to Thursday and into Friday, the high pressure is waddling away. It's heading its way into parts of Central Europe, which is allowing these weather fronts just to get a little bit closer and closer. For most, though, the rest of this working week, I say, will stay dry and fine, but just keep your eye on those weather fronts, because that's signs of a change as we go into the weekend. But for much of the rest of this week, it's calmer. Winds will be lighter after today. There'll be some fog and frost around, but most of the day will be dry, and for many there'll be some sparkling sunshine.
Lovely, make the most of the dry weather. We've had lots of questions in already, and thank you very much for sending them in. First of all, people are asking about what type of weather photo they can submit, and actually it could be anything. UK, Europe, wider, further afield, it doesn't really matter. We just love seeing photos of the sky and what happens, what comes out of the sky and lands on the land. So yes, send us your photos of anything of interest. James Brinklow on YouTube. Hi guys, I've now lived in North Kent for over 8 years and I've seen snow flurries every winter spring. This year, will it be an exception? Or do I have a good chance on the North Downs? Well, North Downs sometimes does catch it with the right wind direction. We haven't been very lucky, particularly the last month. We'll be talking about the January stats a little bit later, but certainly winter is not over yet. It doesn't take much, does it, for the odd snow flurry to happen? So yeah, watch this space, but in fact over the next few days the weather is very, very quiet, so we are not expecting any wintry precipitation, particularly in that part of the world. James Hill on YouTube, when is it going to snow in Hull? Well, again, over the next few days, high pressure in
James, just enjoy the fact that you're in Hull. I mean, why do you need
Hull is
snow?
it's centre of the universe. That and Milton Keynes
God's country.
is a very good place to be living, to be honest. At what temperature do you get ice crystals forming on the tree branches like you see in Siberia or Lapland? Well, it always looks very pretty, particularly when the sun is out. Obviously, ice crystals form around zero. It just depends what the condensation nuclei is, and also about when they form on trees. It's all to do with the humidity and also the wind as well. Get a lot of the wind is going to not really allow.
Yeah, it's not a specific temperature that will happen. You just need all the conditions to be right. You need the right amount of moisture in the atmosphere, like you say, and the right amount of wind as well. So it's not about a specific temperature, although obviously it needs to be below freezing.
And a lot of people talking about the GFS model and suggesting that there could be some snow next week. Before that, though, we just need to get through the weekend because things are changing, aren't they?
Yeah, the weather next week does look pretty lively, certainly, and there will be colder spells next week. There certainly could be some sleet and snow showers here and there, but it's all coming in from the west because the weather is churning up again as we look further ahead. There have been reports about storm system coming in. The Met Office haven't named storm yet, but there is the potential for some very lively winds. It's certainly something we're keeping a very close eye on. Let's take a look at how that low pressure system is forming. Let's take you back to Thursday and zoom out, have a look at the bigger picture close to the UK. Let's put the jet stream on because at the moment that jet is arching way to the north of the UK. By the time we get to Thursday, and that's why that high pressure is building into this zone here. But let's look a little further afield because things are getting lively over into eastern parts of the United States. The jet is getting some energy, some welly, and the reason behind that is, well, let's put the temperature profile on. A cold plunge of air, this cold air digging south, really cold air, and look at that warm air over Florida there. So it's that contrast, it's that there's not much of a gap there between the cold and the warm, and it's that gradient that really supercharges the jet stream. So the jet is getting as I say, supercharged over the next couple of days, Thursday and into Friday. And then if we run through the sequence, just look at how that jet really peps up, but then also starts to spread its way out across the Atlantic. So if we just then see that jet stream charging its way up here, and look it up here, because the really dark colours in the jet core there, that's, you know, extra energy. You often see it in these pink colours, but those dark colours are really quite rare. That means winds likely in the jet high up in the atmosphere to be well over 200 miles an hour. So this jet is getting angry and it's charging by the time we get to the weekend right across the Atlantic. So we've lost that jet going to the north of the UK. It is now, well, it's moving straight towards the UK. It's a zonal flow. Now that's one thing, having the winds high up in the atmosphere really powerfully strong, but how do you then get things down at the surface? Well, for that you obviously need an area of low pressure, and it's exactly how the low pressure interacts with the jet stream that will determine the paths of the low and how intense those low pressures are. So let's put the surface weather patterns on. You can see it's this area of low pressure that we're watching. Let's go back in time a little bit. It's developing out in the United States, and then the jet just picks that low up and moves it along in the middle of the core. But actually, what really happens crucially through the first part of the weekend, way out in the Atlantic, is this little area of low pressure just gets into what we call a left exit. So you see that core, that darker core there, that little area of low pressure comes into the left exit side of the jet, and that is when it really starts to intensify. So the isobars just start spewing out of it as we go through the second half of Saturday, and crucially as it approaches the UK. So it's developing, intensifying as it moves towards the UK during Saturday and into Sunday. Now there's a lot that's got to come together here, of course. You've got that cold plunge in the United States, you've got the energized jet, and then you've just got that low pressure system to be in just the right place, interacting with that powerful jet for it to really intensify into that low pressure system. But a lot of the computer models are suggesting that this is going to happen. So we have a reasonable amount of confidence in the forecast, even though there's a chain of events to go ahead, and even though this is 5 days ahead. But we are suitably concerned that we've already issued a yellow warning for this area of low pressure. But because of the uncertainty, of course, we're not exactly sure which parts of the UK will see the worst of the winds at this stage. So there is a yellow warning covering pretty much all parts of the country. There it is, for Sunday at this stage. Now, it's 5 days away. Obviously, as we see more evidence and actually things start to happen, this low really hasn't formed yet, we'll probably refine this warning. But at the moment, it's just take note. Be aware that yes, on Sunday, we are expecting some very strong winds across parts of the UK, and they could be disruptive. At the moment, the best estimates are 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, possibly even inland, and around coast more than that, so 70, possibly 80 mile an hour winds. Those kind of winds could cause some disruption, and we're also quite concerned about waves. There could be some seriously big waves because of the fetch. Actually, maybe I think it's the
third highest tides of the year.
Yeah, that we're going into reasonably high tides, and if we just zoom out, and what we call the fetch is where those winds have come from. So there's a strong, all the way across the Atlantic, those isobars. So those winds will be dragging from that area of low pressure. They've come a long way. So that's what we're also a bit concerned about. The Environment Agency are looking at that as well. There could be some very big winds tied in, big waves tied into this weather system as it approaches on Sunday as well. Again, there's going to be timing question marks. It could be 12 hours faster, it could be 12 hours slower, because there's a lot of development happening over the next few days. But then obviously that ties in. Does it tie in with the high tides or the low tides? So again, we'll be fine-tuning this over the next few days, but make sure you stay up to date with the latest from the Met Office.
We did have a question, and I can't find it now, from somebody who I believe their child is camping on Saturday into Sunday. The warning starts Saturday night, and it really covers much of the country at the moment, because it's a huge sort of development, which pretty much means even if you're not in the warning zone, it's still going to be very windy. And as Alex says, it could be refined, this warning zone. This is an early warning. But yes, if you're camping on Saturday night, it could be a bit tricky. I
think stay tuned. Again, the message at the moment is stay tuned for updates over the next few days. But just be aware that it could be some pretty lively weather, potentially quite severe weather into the second half of the weekend. The best way to do that, follow the Met Office on social media, probably the best way to do that.
That's interesting. We've had other questions in. Obviously, we're talking about snow. No, there's no change to a snow story yet, although the snow line did fall over the last few days, and we saw quite significant snow over the Highlands of Scotland and Pennine districts as well.
And actually, as that low moves through, it opens the door to colder weather.
That's
for
the GFS
next week.
signal.
And there will be colder interludes next week. Next week does look windy and cold, always coming in from the west, which is never a direction you get particularly widespread snow, but there will be snow showers packing in next week behind that weather system, I'm sure, across, again, the mountains of Scotland, but also potentially higher ground further south. VMD UK TV London, the wind chill factor is significant today in London.
Yeah, it is. That's a good point.
It's feeling quite chilly. Yes, it is. And in fact, to the right wind direction, it can be very parky along the Thames. It really can.
East Coast will be particularly chilly today.
Yeah. Oh, Hull.
Hull will be lovely in Hull because it's always lovely in Hull, but the East Brid will be bracing today.
Now, our podcast, Weather Snap, is going out. It goes out every Thursday, and this week we've got a really interesting interview with Dr. Mark McCarthy. Now, he's our numbers man when it comes to all the stats ranging back not only 50 years, but before that as well. And we interviewed him about the frequency of frosts over the last 50 years. And there's some interesting insights into how our climate is changing. And it's mirrored in what happened last month. So January 2020 was the 6th warmest on record across the UK. But in fact, Scotland saw its 5th warmest, and there have been fewer frosts since 1990.
The fewest number of frosts, for over.
However, this is very interesting. Morpeth in Northumberland was actually frost-free, which is incredible, really, considering we tend to get more frosts further north because of the latitude. And, you know, Northumberland's very, very hilly, dips and dives, and you are going to get some frost hollows, but frost-free.
135 years I've been keeping a record at Morpeth. The first time that's happened, that Morpeth has been frost-free. And there's a couple of other sites as well that didn't have quite as long a record, but incredible first time that's happened.
But in fact, over the last 50 years, the frequency of frosts across the UK, and there doesn't seem to be much regional difference, have fallen from an average around 70 a year to around 55. That is a significant.
So the number of frosts is declining.
Number of frosts is declining, but also what Dr. McCarthy says is that in fact we're still getting early frosts and late frosts, which are catching out the flora and the fauna. So I'll give you an example: early spring flowers. You know, January, mild, 5th mildest on record in Scotland. You get a hard frost, which we are likely to get some sub-zero temperature over the next few days, and these plants, these delicate plants, can be caught out, and it can damage local areas, and we've seen
birds
it.
And nesting area because it gets milder, but then you get a cold snap. So and the window where you can see frost isn't changing, so that's quite
doesn't look like it. It's just the frosts are more sporadic. So we've had some frosty mornings through the winter so far. The main report will be coming out at the end of February about our winter and how that reflects climatology across the UK over the last 50 years. But interestingly enough, it's mirrored across much of Europe as well. So, for example, Mark McCarthy was saying that particularly late bloom grapes are really suffering as well because a hard frost later on in the spring.
Now you're interested, affecting your wine consumption.
Exactly. And also there's been a lot of reports recently about the changing climate across Scandinavia, the lack of snow, the temperatures above freezing, the frost-free days and nights.
Oslo, Helsinki, Stockholm, Copenhagen, all frost-free in January. The first time that's happened.
That's unbelievable.
All of them snow-free except Oslo. Oslo had a little bit of snow. Not frost-free. The first time they'd not had a day below freezing.
Yeah.
So the first time that those 4 capital cities didn't have a day where it stayed below freezing all day. And Stockholm, Helsinki and Copenhagen didn't have any snowfall.
That's just crazy, isn't it?
Throughout the entirety of January. It's just bizarre.
So we've got some interesting maps for you now, which actually just show you the anomaly more than anything.
So this is UK. It was, you felt it. You just knew that January was particularly mild, widely across the country, everywhere pretty much a degree at least above the long-term average. In some places, a large chunk of the country over 2.5 degrees above the average. But it wasn't the warmest January on record.
No.
because that was quite remarkably back in 1916. Look at this map from 1916. Just goes to show we've got the stats. This is again Mark McCarthy generating these stats. He is the stat man. But large chunks of the country back in over 100 years ago were over 3.5 degrees above that long-term average. And again, looking at the weather charts, Mark said again, it was similar. It was just a lot of southwesterly winds, very active jets, lots of spells of very strong winds and some heavy rain as well. That's the oldest, I have to get this right, it's the oldest warmest month record that we have, so it's over 100 years, and that's what's unusual about it, that we haven't broken this January record, whereas a lot of the other months, a lot of the other warmest months are much closer to now because of that warming climate. But that is the oldest one, the oldest highest temperature record. And
actually lots of people always say, God, we really do need a really hard frost. It just gets rid of all the germs. It's what we expect in the UK through our winter months. However, this is a telltale sign, isn't it?
So this is our days of frost, and again an anomaly showing that pink colour there. Much of the UK had between 6 and 10 days fewer frost than the long-term average. Large chunks there of northern England down to the Midlands had 10 days fewer, and just that little pocket there in northern Scotland, more than 15 days fewer frosts than average, and the month is only 31 days long.
I mean, have you noticed it in your back garden? My garden is just soggy most of the time. It's been particularly mild through January. We're not out of the woods yet, as we're saying, and as what Mark McCarthy was really emphasising, is we still get these frosty nights, don't we? We still get sort of spurts of cold weather.
Well, this week it will
but
be back
but we've really seen more milder conditions. But it also
wasn't all doom and gloom. People were just, January was a bit bleak, and you know, coming after Christmas, people are always a little bit, well, when's spring arriving? But it was actually quite a sunny month down there. I mean, this goes to show the weather patterns. You can see from this that all the cloud, all the rain is coming in from the Atlantic. Strong westerly winds. Parts of the east were sunnier than average, parts of Aberdeenshire in particular, and northeast England especially. So again, Hull was basking in sunshine for most of the month. It is the place to be.
It really, really is. So we've got any more charts to talk about? Or is
that's it for January. But just a reminder we've had a big reminder this morning that the UN conference on climate change happening at the end of this year. There's a big launch this morning at the Science Museum. COP26 will be in Glasgow, and here at the Met Office we'll be building up to that over the next few months. Many of our scientists will be there, of course, giving talks from the very latest on climate science. But yeah, it was a big launch this morning of COP26, the conference taking place in Glasgow in November.
And in fact, here in the Met Office today, we've got Sustainability Day, haven't we? So we've got lots of stalls, people showing their wares, sustainable wares, and a great speech from our head of comms, Dave Britton, talking about ideas that we may have. 30 ideas they're looking for, because the Hadley Centre, which is the climate centre here in the Met Office, is 30 years old this year. Pushing towards net zero, which is happening in 30 years' time. We're looking for 30 ideas of how we can be sustainable, how our workplace can be sustainable as well. So in that sort of the atmosphere of sustainability, anything from slow fashion to what you eat, I bought some cakes from a sustainable eatery stand. I'm still going to get those out.
Is this my birthday present?
Well,
these early birthday cakes for me?
Yeah, your birthday lasts a month, doesn't it? We know you. So I've got here.
I'm more than happy to help out sustainability-wise if it involves cake.
So this is vegan cake. We've got 2 vegan cakes here. One is blood orange with olive oil, and the other one is pistachio and rosebud, which I thought was actually quite nice. I'm going to see if I can hand. Can you see that? Can you see those? There.
They look good. They look very good.
So I thought Alex could do a little bit of a taste test. Now, Aidan's not very well today.
Oh,
he'll be very upset.
Gutted he's missing this. I'm sure he's watching. Yeah. Hello, Aidan. Get well soon.
And one of our directors.
Should we save him a piece?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, sustainable. There's no additives, so no preservatives. It's not going to last. Really.
So this is blood orange.
That's blood orange. Tell me what you think. So one of our directors across the way there is on a fast day today, so he can't even try that after the show either.
That's a shame.
What's it like?
It's good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
The orange.
It's moist.
It's very moist. The orange adds a little bit of extra moisture. A bit of zing in there.
Yeah, a bit of zing. So Alex has an Instagram channel. It's called Deacon's Dinners. So he's the expert when it comes to cooking sustainable food in different ways. But this is from Bake Free. You can check out their website. They show their wares and sell their wares at Extra Market. And this one here, before we go, just have a quick taste of that, Alex. Tell me what you think. That's rose petal and pistachio. Very nice indeed. Robert Taylor saying, get well soon, Aidan. Yes, get well soon, Aidan. And he also
Any
says
more
it looks
questions?
yummy. Happy birthday, Alex. Another question coming in, which
Not
is
till
weather
Friday.
related. What is a weather bomb? Well, we do talk about weather bombs quite frequently over the winter months, and that's when the central pressure drops by 24 millibars or less in 24 hours.
I'm not getting a lot of rose in there.
Back to the cake.
I'm not getting a lot of rose in there, but it's very tasty. But I'm quite pleased about that because rose can often be quite
you don't want it
overpowering, can't it?
no.
But that is really nice. Again, very moist. It's got some honey in there, pistachios. Yes, weather bomb.
Yep.
If you go to YouTube, our YouTube channel, our sister channel, learn about weather, then there's an explainer in there about what exactly a weather bomb is. It's been around for about 30 years, the term, and it's just comes from explosive cyclogenesis, where the low pressure just intensifies rapidly over 24 hours, drops 24 millibars in 24 hours. There was a double bomb a few weeks ago. It went back 48 millibars in 48 hours. So and every chance that the system will be that as we go towards the weekend. So please make sure you're staying up to date with the very latest from the Met Office. As I say, things will be developing over the next few days. We'll be fine-tuning that weather warning. Best way to do that, follow us on all of the social medias.
Right, so who's doing the 10-day trend tomorrow? It depends how Aidan's feeling, I suppose.
Aidan's supposed to be doing it. If he's back, he'll be doing it. But
it might be you.
If not, well, you could do it.
I'm doing Weather Snap for Thursday. We've got a really interesting show, including an interview with our CEO, Penny Enderby.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Marking Women in Science next week. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, we're going to talk about frost-free stuff. And also the swarms of locusts across East Africa. Our global guidance units are involved in forecasting weather for that region and helping local governments manage that, because it looks horrific over there. I don't know if you've seen any of the news feeds of those locusts. It doesn't look great at all. Pretty horrible conditions. So thank you for all your comments and questions. I hope you've enjoyed the new format today. Please send in your photos.
Feedback and your photos, yes, and we'll feature them in future programmes. But that's it, is it? I'm going to finish off the rest of the cake.
You can finish, yeah.
Bye
See you
for
next
now.
week.